Talk about iodine, and this is my cat Putin. He's the most laid back cat going. So anyway, takes care of the other guys. But anyway, the iodine is something that, well, it's an essential nutrient that a lot of people are pretty much ignoring because, well, it's not talked about that much for one, and everybody kind of takes it for granted because they figured it's supplemented into foods enough, but it's not. It's not really. Iodine is really where it's supplemented into foods is in salt. But what's going on today is a lot of people are having a lot less salt intake. And part of that reason is because they're telling you should have a low salt diet. But that's kind of like another subject in itself because sea salt is something very essential, healthy to take. But a lot of times sea salt does not have iodine in it, although it could. It could. Now, the issue with iodine, though, is that there's different recommended daily allowances. I know sometimes they'll say it's 150 mcg, that's micrograms, to like 325 mcg micrograms. Like for instance, on this kelp I have here, this is 325 micrograms. They're telling you that's more than twice the recommended daily allowance that's needed. But I also want to state something else. In Japan, the normal diet for the Japanese will have 5,000 mcg micrograms to almost 14,000 micrograms daily, and it's not considered too much for them, for Japanese and Korean diets, because they have a lot of seafood, well, actually seaweed, and actually this is this is Japanese seaweed. This is Japanese seaweed. A lot of times I put this on pretty much everything instead of lettuce too. Now, there's a lot of advantages to having iodine because there's some theories out there, and they're probably good theories, that if the body has the capability of absorbing iodine, or the cells have the capability of absorbing iodine, and it's not blocked, it will actually cause cancer cells to self-destruct. Now, you know that the one central organ in the body that needs iodine is the thyroid, and that's where if you don't have enough of it, you'll have goiter. Now, it's almost like when they come up with these recommended daily allowances, it's almost like it reminds me of the recommended daily allowance of vitamin C. It'll tell you it's 60 milligrams for vitamin C. Now it's mg with vitamin C. Now we're talking mcg, micrograms with iodine. We're using a measurement with mcg. But for instance, with vitamin C, they'll tell you 60 milligrams is enough to prevent scurvy. But that's not necessarily the optimal amount that you need to take or should take. But it's almost analogous, like the same type of thing with iodine, because, I think some of the government studies, or some of the recommendations is that the upper tolerable limit is 1,100 mcg micrograms for iodine. But like I said, the average Japanese diet has between 5,000 and almost 14,000 micrograms, and it hasn't caused them any harm. And as a matter of fact, it seems like they're very intelligent, vibrant people. It seems like it's actually improved their overall health. And they're also noted for more longevity, less heart disease, less incidences of cancer, and things like that. So, one of the things that iodine is also touted to do as a benefit is it could help raise the intelligence level, especially during the development age, and also during the development of a fetus during pregnancy. That higher levels of iodine that the mother took will cause their child to have a much higher brain capacity or more intelligence, and not develop attention deficit disorder later on in life. As a matter of fact, iodine has been known to, besides that, also cause not to reverse fibromyalgia, because a lot of times when people have these different types of aches and pains in their muscles, the muscles have to have a certain amount of iodine in them to work and function correctly. It's not just the thyroid. But what's also interesting is the other places that iodine is also concentrated in is in the ovaries and breast of women, and also the prostate of males. So a lot of times people, like, males are worried about prostate cancer and things. Now I know there's a number of things they talked about with prostate cancer to help alleviate that, and I guess some of them are not proven, but I'll just also make this statement that iodine, since it's also highly concentrated in the prostate besides the thyroid gland, and it's also alleged to cause cancer to self-destruct upon itself if the iodine is absorbed into the body as it should, into the cells as it should. You would think, and it's been alleged by some doctors, I don't want to mention the names, but I read extensively, but it's quite a few different people, that it could help prevent or even reverse prostate cancer or ovary cancer or breast cancer. So it's a pretty important nutrient. But the one thing is, in the way Americans are getting iodine in the body today, is that it's through salt. And what is actually the main thing that's being touted today is like to take a low sodium diet. So if they're doing a low sodium diet, in the main way they're getting iodine, they're also getting a low iodine diet. Now, the other thing is that soils in the United States have become more depleted over the decades, and the soils that are actually in the Midwest and in the north of the United States are far more depleted than in the south of the United States too. That's another thing. Actually, the Great Lakes area of the USA has been noted as known in some circles as the goiter belt because of that reason. And when you have a deficiency of iodine, you also will have a lower intelligence too. There's a number of things that go on along with this besides having maybe a more increased incidence of cancer. I know that's not really, I can't say that's like a proven thing per the FDA, but it's a thing that's coming out in certain circles in certain medical doctors. And there's various studies. I'm not going to actually point to links on them because I read a number of these studies, and it can be very easily Googled. I'll just tell you that. You can actually say, you look up iodine and the incidence of cancer, and you can see there's a lot of different relationships between that. But since iodine is concentrated not just in the thyroid, but other organs where it's mainly concentrated in is in the prostate in males and the ovaries and breast of females. Now, it's also in the skin and muscles too. So a lot of times it's throughout the body. So a lot of times when women have this condition called fibromyalgia, where they have these types of aches and pains throughout the body, one good thing to take is iodine. Now, I think the natural form of iodine, like kelp, is a good one, and Japanese seaweed. I actually have loads of this stuff. I get this all the time. There's only one place in the supermarket I see this. It's called in the Asian aisle, and it's tucked up in this one little spot, and they got a whole bunch of these. Nobody buys them except me, probably, because I go in there and get a few of them at a time. I don't think, not too many people buy them, but it's not something commonly known. And if you ask somebody in the supermarket, do you have Japanese seaweed? They more than likely probably will say, we don't think we have it, and you'll have to look in the Oriental or Asian area, or I don't know, whatever, exotic foods or whatever. But you might find it, because I found it in places, in supermarkets, that they thought they didn't have it, and it took me a while to find it. And then once I found it, I'm probably the main buyer of this stuff. But I also take kelp. I don't like taking iodine pills per se. I like taking it in a natural form, kelp. But, if you're a vegetarian, I'm not a vegetarian, but if you are a vegetarian, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't be a vegetarian. I'm not saying one way or the other, but most people who are vegetarians, they will have land-based plants. Now, land-based plants are not going to have enough iodine in them, so most vegetarians are drastically short of iodine to recommend a dosage of iodine in their body. And this could lead to a lot of different problems, like pain problems, lowered intelligence, sluggishness, ADH, attention deficit disorder, maybe. Even like they even talk about schizophrenia from, not just the iodine, but from the bromide in white floury breads and sugars that's even in soda drinks and everything like that. When you add the combination of bromide and fluoride and the lack of iodine, and adding bad things like bromide and fluoride, it actually contributes to attention deficit disorder, a lack of mental concentration, and even like schizophrenic type symptoms. So, it's a lot of times the medical community or even the psychiatric community is given these things to mask these problems, and a lot of times maybe it really is a nutritional deficiency. Okay, it may be. I'm not playing like I'm doctor here, but I'm trying to play common sense 101 to the max. And it's been proven, though, that in some circles, though, let me put it this way, maybe the studies aren't like with every single baby that was born, but they've shown, and a lot of times they've observed that babies that were born when the mother had a higher iodine in supplemented diet, that when the baby was born, the child was smarter and they learned quicker throughout the early years. And it may have something to do with why the Japanese are pretty damn smart, you know what I mean? I got a lot of respect for those people. It may have something to do with the great Japanese diet, right? So I'm an American, but I kind of tout their wisdom. So anyway, but the best way I think to get the iodine is through kelp. Now, the government studies say the upper safe limit, again, I'll say that again, is 1100 mcg. Or, it's mcg, micrograms, not milligrams, micrograms, mcg, 1100. They say that's the upper safe limit. But the other doctors, some doctors will say that even if you take more, even if you take many times that, it's whatever the body doesn't use gets excreted. And the Japanese typically, on their typical diet, they'll take 5,000 mcg to almost 14,000 mcg a day. And, what kind of harm does it seem to be doing now? It doesn't seem to be doing them any kind of harm. It seems like they're very intelligent, vibrant people. And this is pretty much, the norm throughout the Oriental cultures. They'll have seaweed on everything. Like, they'll have seaweed-flavored snacks or whatever the heck it is. They don't put salt on food as much as they put, like, the actual seaweed or the kelp. So they get a lot of iodine. So it does have a lot of benefits. Now, the thing is, can it stop or prevent breast cancer, ovary cancer, prostate cancer? There's a possibility. But, let me put it to you this way. It's something cheap. It's something worthwhile to try. But the caveat is some people have an inability to absorb the iodine. But a lot of that, I think, is due to fluoride and bromide, which is found in a lot of foods, a lot of sodas, a lot of white breads are adding this to food. That's actually causing the iodine not to be absorbed. So you could be taking a lot of iodine and maybe it's not being absorbed by the body because of all these poisonous ingredients being added to white breads and sugars and things that are being added to sodas. And also it's in the actual water supply, which is fluoride. But iodine, and I also want to mention is boron is another thing that's pretty good to take, very cheap, can help remove some of the fluoride from the detox some of the body too. Now you also know about iodine and radiation. You probably heard about that. Iodine is actually something good to take in the large doses if you have radiation or problem with radiation poisoning. And I know maybe some people are worried about what's happening with Fukushima. But, if you're probably on the West Coast and maybe there's a little bit more radiation over there or something, it might be an idea to, take a little more iodine. But it seems like the U.S. government, I could probably pretty much state that it doesn't make a lot of sense because I don't know why they're saying the upper safe limit is 1100 mcg, when the Japanese diet is several times the upper safe limit. And they've been doing that for years and years and years. I kind of like stick with what the Japanese are saying, but the one thing I keep thinking in my mind is, maybe there's a difference between taking more iodine in this way, natural, or even though these are capsules, this is just kelp. This is ground up kelp in a capsule. Maybe taking it in a natural form, maybe there's a lot different than taking it in a pill form versus where it's just some kind of iodine that they said. Now, you also got to remember it's iodine, not iodide. Iodide is a salt. Iodine is something different. Iodine is really what you were looking for. And iodine is, actually iodide and iodine are both absorbed by the breast, but iodine is really the one you're looking for that's more important in the diet. One is a little bit different from the other. But the natural form, I think, is the best. And if you're going to have a low sodium diet, you're going to really be in danger of not having enough iodine. And the thing is, when, it's what's going on today, though, is that this is now a nutrient that's being ignored again. It's because, the soils are becoming more and more depleted. There's genetically modified foods. There's things added to our foods that are actually blocking the absorption of iodine. And there's also, like I said, the low sodium diet is really causing it too. Because they're telling you not to take in the salt. And, that's one thing. And then the other thing is, they're telling, people are saying take sea salt. And if you look at sea salt, first, which I agree with, take sea salt. Most sea salt, not all, but most sea salt doesn't have any iodine added to it. So, and a lot of people don't realize how important this actual ingredient is. It has a lot to do with your intelligence levels too. Your IQ of children, the IQ of children will be much higher with iodine, and that may be why the Japanese IQ seems to be so much higher too. It may be. I don't know if that's the only reason, but it may be a major factor. So it's cheap. It doesn't cost much. Doesn't cost much to do. It's simple to do. People just aren't doing it because they're not aware of it. There's too many different things being thrown at them, and I think that my approach. I like the kelp pills, but what I've always taken. And nobody does this because it's not a hot seller in the supermarkets, is I take the Japanese seaweed. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll just break it up into small pieces and I'll put it on everything like lettuce almost. I wish they had it that way, but it comes in sheets. These are actually for rolling up rice, making little rice sushi things, whatever. But I put it on everything. And that's pretty much how the Japanese do it. They'll put it on every single thing they eat, and they'll be taking several times what the U.S. government says is the upper safe limit. And it doesn't seem to be hurting them at all. But, maybe the upper safe limit is really correct if you're taking some other form of it that's not natural. But when you're taking it in a way like with kelp or seaweed, I think you're pretty safe that way. I've been doing it. I don't see what the hell's wrong with it. And I know the Japanese are doing it. I pretty much follow what the Japanese are doing. But if you're a vegetarian, you got to make sure that you take plants that are from the sea too versus just the land. Because if you're just taking plants from the land as a vegetarian, you're going to be deficient in iodine. You got to actually have plants from the sea. So I don't know. I thought this was a pretty hot tip because it could, there's a lot of studies now saying that. I know I'm saying there's a lot of studies, but I'm not going to actually point to links because there's a million different links out there. But you can Google them or whatever the heck it is. I'm not making up a statement. There are many, many studies out there that are pointing towards that if you can absorb the iodine in the body, the cells can actually absorb the iodine as they should be. Nothing's blocking it. It will cause cancer to self-destruct. And where there's more concentrations of iodine, besides the thymus, is in the ovaries, the prostate, and the breast. So, a lot of people worried about, breast cancer, prostate cancer or ovarian cancer or whatever. And it's also throughout the muscles. And like I go repeat this again, I know I said it before, but fibromyalgia, one of the causes probably for fibromyalgia is a lack of iodine. And nobody's really thinking of that. Not too many people are thinking that. They're just ignoring it. So it's simple. It's a simple, cheap food. Not much to it. And if you don't want to take seaweed, you got these things. Kelp. Kelp is, I think the natural way is the better way. Kelp. So, anyway, I just want to put this out for a little bit more like public information. I thought it was a pretty hot tip. And like I said, I've been taking the natural form for years. And, you might want to look for this in your supermarket. Not too many people see this. I think I'm the only buyer of it, but because I go there and it's always there, and I pretty much take half they got a row of these in there. Like I take about half of them at once, and so they probably restock them just for me. So, somebody's buying them. Somebody's supporting the Japanese industry here a little bit. I'm not just Toyota and Honda. I'm actually supporting the seaweed industry. Anyway, over and out. Figured it's a hot tip and very important to know.